Welcome back, tuning into today's video where we're doing the second and final spring update today, and have a look at all the long range seasonal models and see what they're showing for spring 2014. Let's hope we're seeing a signal within these models for drier conditions, because I don't think we could bear a deluge in the spring like we've had through this winter. Actually, I think it's very unlikely that we will get a spring as wet as this winter. I think things will start gradually drying out any time from around now onwards. But we'll have a look at the charts in a moment. Before I get on with that, just want to talk about the advertising. There's a video ads on my page, is at gasworthvids.com. If you hit play on the video ad, you'll be supporting gasworthvids.com. Thanks very much for doing that. There's a fantastic video doing the rounds within these video ads at the moment called the Wonders of Life app demo. There's some amazing footage within that video. I've had a look at it. It's really top quality video, and do check that ad out when you get the chance. If you see it pop up, do hit play and have a look and see some of the images within that Wonders of Life app demo video. Very good, high quality video. That one is. Just want to say about my eyes, I'm still a bit sore with my eyes, hoping to get it all sorted out soon, but that's the reason I'm sitting here squinting a little bit at the camera. Hope it's not too off-putting. And just want to say also about websites using board video, all the long range models, models can be found on my links page. If you want to see any of these models for yourself, just go to the links page and you'll be able to go on and see the websites and the charts all for yourself. And just really say thanks very much for supporting GasWebVids and enjoy the video. Let's hope it's good news for the spring of 2014. So we're going to start off with the experimental long-range model from NASA. The temperature forecast for the spring, first of all, from NASA. It's showing, well, slightly above average in those pale yellow colours there. It's not desperately warm. The real warmth is over here in the east of Europe, but nevertheless it's pretty mild, really. That's quite pleasant. About a degree above average. Would be a nice mild spring if that's right. Of course, that's an anomaly stretched out over 3 months, so it doesn't preclude the chance of some cold snaps and cold intervals. At times could get two, for instance, could get 2 very mild months and then a cold month in between, something like that. So it doesn't rule out cold weather, but overall that is a milder than average spring. The rainfall forecast from the NASA model doesn't really have a signal. I don't think it's near normally in those white colours, so either it's average or the model doesn't really have a signal. Something you often find on these rainfall precipitation forecasts, but certainly for temperatures it's going for quite a mild sort of spring. Now the next one we're going to look at is the Russian model, and the Russian model, while I wait for the page to click over, there we go, is based on probabilities. So it's a little bit different. It's not a general sort of chart that the model has come up with, general anomaly. It's a probability based on a certain outcome. So we'll start off with temperatures first of all. This is where the British Isles is, just here in those blue and green colours, which is actually near to above average, near to below average temperatures. The prediction from the Russian model, the probability is that temperatures will come out average to below average. The milder than average temperatures up here to the north of the country, but for us, yeah, the probability is definitely there for average to below. So that's a bit different to the experimental NASA model already. The rainfall prediction for the spring is that, well, rainfall is going to come out a little bit above average. We those slightly sort of beige to sort of yellowy colours there. That is above average precipitation. I think what's going on there, you can see from all this blue in the Atlantic, is that we've got quite a big mid-Atlantic ridge there stretching out. We've got a trough. I'll just clear that away. We've got a ridge of high pressure there, mid-Atlantic ridge in the Atlantic. We've got low pressure stretched out there, and the jet stream is going something like that. So we're on the cold side of a jet and under a bit of a trough, so that's the reason I think the Russian model would be going, once you average out those probabilities, that's the reason the Russian model will be going for a relatively cool and unsettled spring. That's quite disappointing after what's happened this winter. You will want to see spring panning out like that. But you have to say British weather has been pretty good this winter. It was one of the few that never went for anything particularly cold for the winter. It always went for a mild and sort of unsettled winter. So it's a pretty good model, but British model, you have to take that seriously. Next one is the JMA, the Japanese. It's 500 with our heights broken down into monthly periods. For British Isles, it's just there, we're upside down. This is the Northern Hemisphere view. And for March, we're going to start off with March. It's seeing above average heights sitting to the south, below average heights sitting to the north. The jet stream is running through more or less across the country. So that's a very typical sort of spring setup. Really high pressures to the south, low pressure to the north. Always more unsettled to the north and west. Always dry to the south and the southeast. Relatively mild as well, wouldn't be a cold month. And I think if that high pressure was to extend in more than that's suggesting, which I think it could do actually through March, then we could be looking at really quite a pleasant start to the spring indeed. Going through to April next, the 500 millibar height anomaly prediction for April shows that again we've got trough of low pressure out to the west of the country. We've got high pressure, perhaps weakening off a little bit down to the south and the southwest. So everything looks a little bit weaker there, but I think that could be a more unsettled sort of signal for April, to be honest, as opposed to March, where you wouldn't think of it looking at it, but I think the high pressure is weaker and the low pressure is perhaps displaced a little bit further south. April is a tricky month to pin down for me because I think we could get quite a cool sort of month coming up in April, so I'm not seeing a lot of evidence of cool weather there on that 500 millibar height anomaly prediction, but I think certainly an unsettled month is a possibility. And then May, quite unusual what we're seeing in May. We've got low pressure down to the south and southeast and up to the north, high pressure out in the Atlantic. I think what we could get from that is quite a lot of easterly winds, and perhaps unsettled down in the south. It could be wetter in the south, drier in the north with that, but the main thing would be the easterly wind, which would make for really quite a dull, cool, depressing sort of month. So that's not a very good anomaly for May. But the March one does look okay, and then things get trickier from April and May onwards. The Brazilian model next, 500 millibar height anomaly prediction for the spring. This is always a little bit different because the blue colours are actually going for above average heights, and the red colours are going for below average heights. Normally it's the other way round on a typical 500 millibar height anomaly prediction. So you would look at that and think that's high pressure stretched out through the Atlantic. Actually that's low pressure down there. It's got high pressure up to the northeast. It's got high pressure out in the Atlantic. That's a tricky one to pin down as well. It could be quite unsettled in the south and drier in the north. What you could get with that though is a lot of perhaps southeasterly or even southerly winds, so it could be quite a mild spring, but maybe quite unsettled, particularly down in the south and the southwest, probably drier up in the north and the northeast. You see, as we're going along here, there's no real trend emerging again for the spring. It always seems to be a hard season to pin down the spring, and this time is no exception. Beijing Climate Center next, and these are 500 millibar height anomalies from Beijing Climate Center. It's going for above average heights here up to the north of the country, below average heights in the Atlantic around Newfoundland, and then above average heights quite nicely stretching up from the Azores into western parts of Europe. So we're almost in a cold sort of pattern with all that northern blocking, but this high pressure to the southwest sort of saves the day a little bit. So I think overall that's probably quite a mild and maybe near normal sort of signal for rainfall. Let's have a look at the temperature prediction, and yeah, it's going for above average temperatures this spring. We're in those orange colours there. That's a nice looking temperature anomaly. If you're looking for a mild spring, would be nice and mild with that. The rainfall anomaly is actually above average across the British Isles, and that's the case for much of Central Europe as well. And the reason that's happening, if we go back, the reason that's happening is that this low pressure is coming in between the high pressure to the south and the high pressure to the north. It's just all set up just right to allow this low pressure to come through. But given all these above average heights around the place, I think there's got to be some question marks about that. I think that would be quite a dryish and mildish signal for the spring from the Beijing Climate Center. Certainly a mild signal for rainfall perhaps coming out nearer the average. Jamstec IOD model next, and again it's going for a milder than average spring, so it may have a pattern emerging here which is for milder than average temperatures this spring. We're in those salmon pink colours. Look how warm it is, by the way, across most of northern Europe as well, and Eurasia. Temperatures above average right the way across the northern hemisphere virtually, it seems. So a very mild spring coming up if that's right, or certainly a mild spring anyway coming up if that's right. And precipitation, well, rainfall comes out a little bit drier than average down to the south. So again, the idea is that we've got high pressures into the south and to the southwest. This is similar to what we see from the Beijing Climate Center, with low pressure up to the north. So that's quite a mild and dryish looking signal for the spring. Always more unsettled up to the northwest. That's really what we want if you want to dry out from this horrible deluge that we've had through the winter. CFS version 2 next, and well, this model was actually going for quite a nice spring. In last month's update, it's done a little bit of a flip on it actually for this month. It's much more unsettled. So this is the 700 millibar height anomaly for the spring, and it's in below average heights out to the west, but high pressure above average heights is down to the southwest. But probably this low pressure is actually more impactful, with the jet stream coming through more or less across the country and this high pressure not really being able to get in. But let's break it down into monthly periods to see what it's showing for the 3 months of the spring. And we'll start off with March, of course, first of all, and we have the above average heights there down to the southwest, but below average heights up to the northwest. Similar to what we see from the JMA model when we broke the JMA down into monthly periods. We've got high pressure to the southwest, below pressure to the northwest. That high pressure probably becoming more impactful through the course of the month, certainly around the middle of the month, settling things down quite a lot and sending that low pressure but below average heights up to the northwest. So again, that could be a pretty good signal for March, starting off unsettled, turning drier, and temperatures probably coming out quite mild. Now for April, it still has that high pressure out in the Atlantic, but what it's showing for April is that the below average heights sink down across the country. So that's potentially a more unsettled and cooler sort of scenario. The jet stream is coming through and around that low pressure. So again, I think the suggestion is still there, and I'm still playing with this idea that April could be a more unsettled month compared to March, and it could be cooler. It may well be that April is excuse me, our first colder or cooler than average month of the year, of the spring of course, but also of 2014. And then finally May, and again the anomaly for May is not that good, I'm afraid to say. We've got the below average heights, below pressure down to the southwest, although it is a weak anomaly. High pressure is up to the north of Scandinavia. The jet stream coming across the Atlantic, quite a weak jet stream by now, running around that trough of low pressure. So again, I think we're on the cool side of the jet. We've got low pressure around, it's unsettled, it's relatively cool. We could be bringing in these northerly and easterly or northeasterly and easterly winds with that. So that's not a particularly inspiring signal for April and for May. I think March could be okay, but overall that's quite a big change around from the CFS version 2 model compared to what we had last month. And you'll remember that CFS did this leading up to winter to start off with through the autumn of 2013, going for a cold and dry winter. As we went on and we got to November, it did a flip and it went much milder and much wetter. So the CFS model is prone to doing this, and when it does flip late on, it can often be the case that it's flipping to the right sort of signal. So we do have to be aware of that. what's going on there. Finally, we've come to the last model. Now we've got our very own UK Met Office. Sea level pressure anomaly. First of all, we've got high pressure out in the Atlantic. The low pressure is all up to the north and northeast. Now you remember the Met Office model was going for quite a coolest sort of signal for the spring in last month's update. This month's update is a lot milder, with that high pressure nicely placed out to West Country and the low pressure up to the north. So have a look at the temperature forecast for the spring. It will click over in a moment. That was sea level pressure, as I said. This is the temperature forecast for the spring, and it's going for mild to above average temperatures there for most parts of the country in those sort of lemon and orange colours. Be cooler than average temperatures are out in the Atlantic, so they're not far away, but I think we're just about under cooler than average conditions. Notice how warm it is again to the north and the east, with all that red, very warm springing up for Scandinavia and western parts of Russia, if that is correct. And then finally, the precipitation, the rainfall anomaly for the spring, showing around average to maybe a little bit above average. Actually, we're in those sort of beige colours there across the country, but the green colours are close by, so it could be a little bit above average, particularly in the north and the east, drier out to the west. But overall, that's fairly reasonable signal from the UK Met Office model. It wouldn't be a bad spring, if that's right. So we've had a mixed bag there. We've got a mixed bag of models for the spring. Now, I've got to sort of come up with a forecast on all of this and see what I think. I think the first thing we've got to say is that March will be a drier month. I'm pretty confident we're not going to see the deluge from January and February continuing into March. So yeah, I'm going to go for potentially drier than average month, the first one for quite some time in March. I also think temperatures could be quite mild. It may start off on the chilly side, but I think temperatures overall quite mild for March. But then as we get through to April and May, it becomes much harder. I think it'll turn potentially more unsettled and cooler through April and May. So when you average it all out, we probably come out, well, let's say we're going to come out very slightly below average. If April and May come out cool and we have that milder than average March, and maybe we could come out with a cooler than average spring. That seems a bit risky though, because last spring was very mild. So let's say we're going to go for average spring, average temperatures, a mild start, and then probably cooling off as we go through. And in terms of the precipitation, I think we're probably going to come out drier than average. I think March will be drier than average. I think April, although more unsettled, could be drier than average too. May might be quite unsettled. So average temperatures to slightly drier than average spring coming up. That's the prediction from gavsweathervids.com. It's highly experimental. It's not to be relied upon. It's just a bit of a heads up of what these models are showing, and then I attempt to come up with my interpretation of it all. So the final analysis, the spring 2014 forecast from gavsweathervids.com is for average temperatures. And in terms of precipitation, I think we come out very slightly drier than average. So good news for anybody affected by flooding. I think the spring will be a lot better compared to the winter. Let's keep our fingers crossed and see how it all goes. We'll be going on to summer next month. We'll start to do the summer outlooks in March. So come back for that. It's going to be very interesting what sort of summer is ahead. And in fact, just a quick heads up about that, I may have a look at a couple of these longer range models on my blog, the Flash page, tonight sometime around 7-8 o'clock. If you're interested in what might be going on for the summer, come back that. I might put up a couple of charts that I've seen that are quite interesting. That's it for now. I hope you found the video interesting and informative as ever. Thanks a lot. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.